So, Facebook is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with a principal child abuser. And with his campus are foreign and domestic medical families and retired police chiefs and their intimate ties, and people involved with putting fake things in databases and building upon that and next to each of the campuses. And with the differences of guilt, use slash exclusion slash us also, because these are people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, attaching little kids and people of all ages to fake change ties to other people, including the news, fake told conversations with me, including Weathersfield police, fake conversations with me as a kid and as an adult. The reason I know about as a kid is because they pretended it through the news. They had to hide live regressions because the kids who did go down there and speak with them, they use those kids to make it look like they know me out of sequence. They knew me. Increasingly, there are people involved with Trinity College tied to a Chris Walters and a Ray Cololo, who have been planting evidences with people at and conjunctive to Webb House, where it is next to a witch child's place in Old Weathersfield, and now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. I don't know them at all, and they'll tell you. And some of them will tell you probably people tied to them will tell you that they were influenced to make a fake exception real quick, and that's all. In other words, and they other was spoken for them about that too. They just tax people. They're wicked, just mass identity theft, fraud, slanders. Increasingly, a Sandy Hook in prison in Newtown, Connecticut. There are a number of their federal criminals there they had collusions with the crime scenes before they were caught with a principal child abuser, for example. The prison had roles forcing that and putting fake things in their database every day as collusion slash SI already were while they were being used remotely. But this is across the country. Forgiveness is because where and how we could discern the breaching method that James Madison described for us. And with our founders unnamed. We were not supposed to let anyone pretend that we know the names of our founders. Now, you guys, while you want pretending that's debatable, you're sensing for the breaching method that there were unknown founders that had to counter extort and force everyone at the same time to take part with the Declaration of Independence. The stages that made possible like right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. George Washington had to meet with a French general, but he had to counter extort, but he also had to leave fake branches entrenched with slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies. No human wanted roles with that. George Washington told us to be honest about his extortion. You guys aren't honest about his extortion, but you have delusions too. And he said, "Oh, well, this is what I thought, because that's what we're all taught together in the books." So the experts have been used the way to hide their roles with the breaching method, which motivates them. The breaching method put the book behind their back, put those things behind his back, and replaced it with Boolean logic, A therefore B, and sense and sensibilities, and needs that in new nature would demonstrate to the people of the sciences that they were educated by the breaching method, showed them how to be. Names of the people of the science, how to be syntax, appreciation, syntax nature. And then it shows them they have to blame on other things other than themselves, like students, like parents, like neighbors. This is a breaching method that consciously keeps the sense and sensibilities of people. We'll go fishing, PHISHING, rather than be honest when people make short words about child abuse acts and about name switching and forging, interbranch roles with it. When did they stop having collusions? Even if they were completely made up, there's a witch child's place near the Webb House. I mean, not the Webb House. It was first named Webb House with no the. and now it's renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. And then and now, then and now, other was and is being communicated for our founders, plural, and for James Madison and for the plan that was unfolding there. James Madison's plan to counter extort everyone, force everyone to an extent to break the rules, not just of the crazy internationally monitored conversations, not just of the crazy international companies, not just of the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, not just through the insidiousness of news, all natures of help too, criminal and insidious natures of collusions, where how one of the most things it needs is to keep our countries A through Z, other things, others, ourselves, blank, rather than a human fact should be nature breaching method, which is one of the things that the communications of James Madison and of nature itself demonstrates, that all those different multi-front affronts on the human species, syntax, volume science, we were still not allowed to appreciate how we are a system that has nature showing syntax distinctions to us as a human species body of individual bodies, and how it generates all group differences, like male and female too, because that's also what we could discern with other species bodies. You guys are jumping on oh, you're trying to make fake exceptions with sexuality and sustaining that right through kids that go between different schools, and they're still hearing that because not one person could speak for the law. The breaching method senses. The breaching method already used the branches of government individually grouped it together. Our countries individually grouped it together. Once it had and sustained since God knows how long before, before our founders were born in America and in Russia, already there was a breaching method entrenched that designed the suburbs. They wanted to build better then. But there was even slavery. There were even slavery rules were only permitted, and only all these affronts against all women. Now, if anyone spoke up about the parts of that or the whole thing outside of the internationally monitored conversation, or which were also juxtaposed with overt criminal, the sense and sensibilities of overt criminal enterprise, private one, all roles that has been sustained so long. What nature of a unity would be able to speak, to get together? What nature of independence? And how would that be able to counter the breaching method that measured and maintained, and measures and maintains other things, others, ourselves, blame by the people operating in the names of countries A through Z, by another to name, the proverbial devil, the proverbial shaitan, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, method /S. Even if it's not real, we could counter this. And this is more probably, what the devil is about. For example, but one of the proofs of it is, for example, the beginning of the Old Testament says, only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together, in the part that comes before that. And that's right at the beginning of the Old Testament. Before the part with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is after the part where it says only defend, the part right here. I've never heard that part or the part that comes before it spoken about by anybody. There, everyone wants to fight, to read the book out of sequence. The same thing with the Quran. And see, both these books were written with consciousness, knowing that the breaching method would use their differences. The people attacking the religion syntactically and the people defending them syntactically. It hides behind and through that. The breaching method used confessions, where relative to how we got countries A through Z to blame other things, others, ourselves, on things that it caused. and then it helped counters to it also do that, not even realizing both sides of that. And then more and more people couldn't afford to have discerned finite details, appreciated in the nature of syntax. Syntax, nature, sense, and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase. Can't afford to have it. To appreciate that quality of fact, tribute nature, for example, that wouldn't have left out. You think there's one good lawyer? We don't even have black people as whites of lies, inseparable from the subject of slavery. Just like the breaching method was inseparable and is inseparable from any proper teaching of American history. But we still have that replaced because our founders had to leave it. That's part of the reasons. Why is relative to the part of that list of reasons they had to leave the slavery even entrenched. Because the breaching method uses an algorithm in the databases of the republic for which we stand, in the relativity / hyperrelativity of how we are manifest as and shown to describe it by nature itself. Nature itself shows us that we are distinct from the other species' bodies, but we are also non-distinct from them, and we are simultaneous with them. But further, for what is not neither us nor them. But while it is all things anyway, we're like a small part, like the smallest part on a greater body. See what humanity's species body of individual bodies. Humanity is the only one. That is not just criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence. I say it like that fast because this breaching method needs like things like criminal foreign influences more and more to become real because they are blamed wrongly as collusion / S too, which really causes worst. The worst gangs of New York City, the worst gangs of Chicago. Where do you think because of the predicate acts method / S that Scruff McGruff is involved with, even if not consciously. You guys have replaced with our founders. And yet self-value collusion / S and or sensing for the breaching method and or relative to how when you, as each person was, sensed. This breaching method has a method by you guys replacing what nature showed us with correlation. That's for correlation / hypercorrelation. Being able to discern how birds have sexes, mammals, amphibians, insects. They're group differences that are generated by and as, well, only semi-as. Like for example, hair on your head is only semi-as your complete identity. But while it is your complete identity anyway, and that's because it is your complete identity is its complete identity anyway. And it will only be its way with positive or negative to our syntax here, or it demonstrates to us when we use syntax systems, any system's tactical theory from its own. It demonstrates with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures in a special difference shown, forced from here. As forced space nature, space is special difference transferred. The oceans, the whole entire ocean is even polluted by humanity. And then they speak about technology. And they leave out how the suburbs were designed tactically to nature to be a landscape theater, but while tactically to nature to induce nature's own demonstrations of it with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures of it, and means to try to do something about that. So the breaching method showed them how to use criminal insidiousness, natures of means to cause positive. by being collusions with criminal and citizen natures of positives. Like, for example, where and how and when, what roles, forcing other things, others, or selves, originally and still, framing our founders for slavery, even the people attacking them too, and the campuses with their defenses. Because that's why we're directed by James Madison not to entertain campuses um, pretending that they know the name of any of our founders besides James Madison's. See, the campuses were already shown by the breaching method. They need to hide. Collusion slash yes, what it is a collusion against yourself too when you're a little kid or when you're an adult at all ages, and you don't have the correlated slash or hypercorrelated. In other words, you don't have the pretend it's debatable. You allow the quote experts unquote to pretend that things are debatable, like how we have black people's whites of eyes. And nature generating, they have theory, like the theory of relativity. It's used to sense, to measure and maintain. Black people's whites of eyes is about relativity. And relativity to a breaching method that was forced relativity. And again, right where nature was demonstrating that in our founders' communications about it, James Madison, and about how, again, why not to entertain anyone else's name pretended to be our founders. Because that's also used to sense. While they're pretending that's debatable, oh, well, it's just a debate. That means you're also used to sense, because you guys are replacing how there was counter extortion and unknown founders that directed us to keep their names unknown. See, they knew you guys would change the story and be a criminal insidiousness nature of theater. Blaming other things, others, themselves, even if not realizing to an extent. Also, tactically, delusions wrought because you guys were child abused. And you, like, Senator Hawley is much more, he's smarter than me about many things, but not about this. Former director of the F.B.I., Robert Luskin, has many involved with Facebook, with the name Scalora, too, with the campuses, with sexual and medical offenders of kids and people involved with untimely deaths. There are overt criminal enterprises, private ones. The interbranch names, all, even when they're not in the same involved with the cases, even the smallest cases, in other words, they have collusions in the biggest case, they have collusions even when they're not in there. Because this breaching method employed uses of differences, and nature demonstrates that as it knew it would. So it made and keeps collusion slash S to keep people of the future, forcing people, jumping into other people's conversations dishonestly. Because you guys are already forged styles of logic, natures of logic. They can't afford that. They can't defend that and afford to have principal treatments used properly. You guys never heard principal treatments used properly, and the breaching method already showed you that, and show you how the people before you, with the readings of statutes and precedents, the validity of what it means, the value of what their outcomes are in cases. They even lie about the outcomes of cases. Increasingly, the courts never stopped having collusion slash S with all crime scenes. What forgiveness is relative as, where they're at the same time names on all sides of criminal civil cases, all natures of crime scenes, campuses used in crime scene. The campuses are used by a predicate acts with facts method that is against all location slash S names, indifference slash differences, and then in ways nobody wanted and nobody wants. Hyper additionally, at the same time, it forced collusion slash S hyper additionally that simultaneously nobody wants, but it makes exceptions. And this is where we are, quality of fact, attribute, nature, play, our sense and sensibilities. where we are timed going to where we're going to be. In other words, these databases are involved with all kinds of natures of organized crimes. And with Facebook, Facebook has roles with the World Trade Center attack, with names with predicate acts with them, who have roles intercities and interstates and internationally timed collusion /S with them. These are also people hyper additionally collusions with names at and next to the state corrections offices through time. One of the kids, now an adult too, as a leader, she recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There are people involved with proven child abuse as leaders of kids. And one, while she was involved with forcing it, but with the people with the WTNH too, and the FBI director. I believe her name is Michelle Sandquist. And that's also one of the ones involved with a former Mayor Gold. Many people tied to a former Mayor Gold involved with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with people like him and a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with nonverbal confirmations. Other roles of people with home break-ins in my area, who also have roles with murders and body dumping spots years apart. Untimely deaths were brought up to principal child abusers campus to me first. I still haven't been responded to about that. They've been faking. They have people say, hold on. And then they make confessions and say all kinds of fake things. And they say they're going to call back. Then they leave all kinds of messages and say more fake things. Then you call back. You never get to speak. But on the record, there's a whole bunch of calls. So you're going to say, oh, yeah, there was a number of calls. But then they pretend you say things they don't. You can't speak with the police because they're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Two retired Weathersfield police chiefs. They're leaking things about themselves and their intimate ties and families through everyone other and pretend they want privacy. They're refusing to get on paper into branch since I was a kid so they could stick fake things in databases. And they have roles with corners of streets and corners of buildings in ways they don't, in the side entrances to parks in ways they don't even know the extent of. So we can observe that people, in other words, they're reading the statutes and press. Oh, he's just saying that on YouTube because they're already shown they can't afford to have what was discerned. They can't. The prisons have collusions with the crime scene. They're going to speak about crimes or punishment. The body dumping spot and the serial killer of the reported reported body dumping spot of a reported serial killer, and that serial killer in his prison has roles also with other prisoners, even if they were undercover police, like with a Cintron, is involved with people with the name Cintron from Puerto Rico, also with a police chief Cintron, with men and women with the name Bobby, involved with a whole bunch of people with the corner of Elm Street and Rocky Hill from years before Mazzucato Bakery was there. And that's reportedly related to them. And they're trying to make it look like it's personal, and they're sequence shifting. They brought this up. They won't get it on paper. They have whiting forensics too, collusions with them, all along routes 3 and routes 175 in conjunctions to it and to that, with a bunch of people putting fake things in databases. I never saw a Mazzucato on a Weathersfield campus in my life. One time they tried to make a fake a campus I went to. So they have increasingly a Phil Collo involved with whiting forensics and with others recorded involved with judges, prosecutors, their family members, victims, advocates. They have collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And I'm not saying the way if they have legitimate roles with that, whatever if they would call that, but I'm not trying to debate, oh, that's not legitimate or that's legitimate. I'm saying they have actual predicate acts with them and with people with the databases. And this is recorded, but they're also recorded. It's also recorded with them hiding it by putting fake things and pretended recorded. WFSB has collusions of people that were planted in my classes. And they'll tell you this too and ask properly. And they brought this up. Get me off the fake conversations with Channel 3 News, please. Senator Hawley. And get the New Britain Superior Court on paper, one name in sequence. They have a bunch of family members. They have A bunch of people tied to a Leahy family pretended through the mail to others that I had conversation with them. I never had a conversation with them in my life. They have Hartford Hospital involved 3 times with a Dillon family, and people who planted evidence on all sides of my house. One time I had for the first time, they forced me for mental evaluation. I had to force people to call the police without telling them why, and I wouldn't. No one would do it. So I said, "Well, do it. I'm gonna get really bad, because my father had just died, and these are people involved with, identity theft, fraud, slanders against me that have collusions with all sides of that case, and the courts themselves. They have all roles of wire crimes, acts, methods, medicines, crimes, and relative delusions. Oh, but I'm not a doctor. Watch, get me up for fake conferences before in the domestic medical families. There are ones with like the prisons too, like the sick people there, and sick fake motivations for it. They can, if someone wants to write a letter, they're going to read what they write first. They'll just change it, fake it too. They also have confessions about their roles, communicate. They have communications racketeering worse than war crimes collusions. And with showing me someone put a perfectly set up sheet tied onto a bed. These are little fakes with fake conversations with people. You have weak-minded, little weak, sick people involved, like with the Dr. Zeman too, with this Leahy family and others, with judges and prosecutors in multiple courts, personally and professionally, involved seating juries, criminally foreign influence, while tactically delusions wrong. And there are proofs that they changed and fake and hide what was typed to Judge Napolitano. Fox News, and then if you call up, they have the people like, it's like a scam. Look, just hang up real quick. In other words, they're trying to frame stories and defenses of Republican. Oh, because I was trying to make it equal to Republican. You guys, get the Constitution on a bridge. Follow mandated law. Stop letting them pretend. So Facebook has collusion still, preventing me. I can't go to the Wethersfield Police Department. They already faked conversations with me as a kid, and now as an adult. They have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never had a class with this Eric Mendez too, nor with his brother. They try to make a picture. Maybe they walked by me one time in the hallway or a couple times, real quick, and that was the only time ever. That's what they do. There's ties between people that did that with them, who I recorded involved with the British Superior Court with sexual medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic medical families, military families, all their differences. The news has collusions. They attach me to fake conversations and ties to themselves and others. These are a whole bunch of natures of organized crimes and names that they brought in dishonestly. Then they took my Facebook pages, plural, when things were being confirmed to me. Because there were Robert Rodriguez recorded. I never had communications with him verbally ever in real life. And he confirmed, I saw he was trying to plant evidence as syntax. I recorded since I was a kid. People rolls with this. And as one's involved with the World Trade Center attack tied to Robert Rodriguez. His syntax regarding an untimely death, even if it was made up, including has this collusion / that's some people who were at Trinity involved with an untimely death reported there too. And in other words, even if that was made up at the same time, because these are people that make up everything to make someone make some misspoke, they'll change fake everything because they already caught. Because the breaching method already showed them it used them remotely since they were kids. Whole careers are kept criminally foreign influence to actively delusions raw. See the people behind. You can't even see them behind the bricks. All those towers in New York City in the back of rap videos, especially when they have the drones looking at it. Like, not one person can go outside and grow one food crop. And the breaching method forced the suburbs to cause that same effect. The suburbs. But if we're all on the same page, space means come out of nowhere. But first, we have to be aware about how this design was designed to keep everyone forced, checking her self-value collusion / S, right? When they don't self-value, forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading anything, others, ourselves, to be blamed rather than the breaching method, which never stopped being a collusion / S. With your uses of your own difference / S or others, where we are a syntax nature as value. You have been through systems abridged. And as styles abridged, a styles of logic, natures of logic abridged, that can't afford to be heard, unobstructed. Any voice with short words proper for the Constitution unabridged. Vaccine. That's just things below.